Alright, what's up, y'all? So, I'm gonna do a little multidimensional update for full moon in Aquarius, August 2019. So recently I've been listening a lot to this woman named Jessa Reed, who is fucking amazing. Like, seriously, go out, check out Jessa Reed. She has this awesome piece on Comedy Central's This Is Not Happening about being a meth addict, and recently she's been coming out of the closet as this total visionary and multidimensional, paranormally attuned, brilliant person who sees a lot about the truth of what's going on and has some excellent information about what's happening. And she does it with this sort of like, I don't know, tough, sort of down-to-earth way of delivering the information that just, I love her. But she had this breakdown about the timeline of collective evolution, which I resonated so deeply with. And essentially, she uses it in terms of dimensions, and she uses dimensions to refer to stages of consciousness. So there's the third dimension, which is a stage of consciousness that's characterized by fear and polarity. So you, me, us, them, right, wrong, good, bad, all of that. And the whole fucking thing is just permeated by fear, by absolute terror. And that motivates the entire way of categorizing information, that motivates the decisions, that motivates even the desire to create us and them, all of it. And then she says that previously, but especially accelerating around 2012, there was a move from the third dimension to the fourth dimension. And the fourth dimension, in terms of this level of consciousness, is all of a sudden some of those dichotomies started to collapse, right? Male and female started to collapse, right and wrong, the idea that there was truth and lies. Those sort of things around 2012 started becoming more and more difficult to substantiate. Right? Like, all of a sudden there's multiple truths occurring simultaneously. There's paradoxical truths, right? And we all became much more open to things like aliens and near-death experiences and other dimensions. And Jessa Reed herself actually had a near-death experience, which is when she first began opening up to this type of phenomena. And in that experience, she died and sort of went into this blue ball of light. And she merged back into this blue ball of light that was love. And she was her, but she was also the blue ball of light. And then after that period, she had 4 years where these beings, who she called aliens, would come and teach her things in her dreams. And that's how she moved from the third to the fourth dimension. And some of it involves just being more sensitive to subtle energies, like being able to notice when people are lying to you or lying to themselves. And that actually a lot of the things that we experience right now that are like anxiety or depression are actually a result of being sensitive to noticing incongruence and inconsistencies and dishonesties in people, and having access to ways in which energy is kinked up without having a perceptual understanding or training about how to live with that sight. And so you might feel like you just want to be in your room all the time, like going outside is too hard, interacting with lots of people is too hard, or getting flooded and overwhelmed with information when you're in big groups of people. And it's because those people themselves are not in complete honesty with themselves, and you don't exactly have connection to the truth of what you're perceiving and experiencing, and don't know how to move through life and move through those situations, being receptive to all of that. Almost like you're made to be living in a different dimension of consciousness, and yet we're all still sitting around pretending like we're in 3D and a different physics apply to it. And so of course you get things like depression, anxiety, drug addiction, all that kind of stuff. But the thing about that shift to 4D is that even though it included a lot of sensitivity and a lot of upgrades to what we were able to perceive, it was largely mental. You know, it was making our minds more flexible, making our sensory perception more heightened. But what's going on right now, and she says starting around 2017, was this move from 4D to 5D. And 5D is actually maybe something more like that blue ball of light. Like maybe it's something about being able to exist more truthfully in this unified field of love. Like being able truly to be non-judgmental in a space of love, to not create separation and otherness. but to feel the interconnection of people and to feel that interconnection as one that is permeated by love. And what's really difficult about this shift from the fourth dimension to the fifth dimension is that it has to do with our emotional body. It has to do with our primal patterning and habits that we learned. And it has to do with really getting down to the deeper levels of fear that exist, that have to do with everything that we put between us and other people and everything that we put between us and love, which means addressing codependency, attachment styles, self-hatred, all this fucking bullshit. And I don't know about you guys, but like the past few years, like that is so up in my face. Everywhere where I create me and them, everywhere I'm like, you don't love me, see you don't love me, they don't love me, or I don't love you, or whatever all the strategies that I have for gaining love are so just screaming at me. And it was so confirming for me when I found Jessa Reed's sort of timeline, because it corresponds so much to my own journey. You know, I started off being open to this stuff around 2010 about just getting more flexible in my mind and my perception about what reality was, studying cyborg anthropology, becoming even more of a psychonaut than I already was, opening up to near-death experiences, multiple dimensions, aliens, being able to hold multiplicity and simultaneity in my mind, being able literally to see and feel when people were lying, and having to do all of this reprogramming to get back in touch with my own way of navigating in that ocean of uncertainty and finding whatever that pillar was inside. And then suddenly becoming so drawn and feeling the need to focus on my own habits and patterns, my own places where I create separation, my own codependency and attachment, all the places where I kink and not the free flow of love, and all the places where I am dishonest with myself and have an inaccurate view of who I am and what I'm really up to. And it's been hard. It's been hard and really confronting. And sometimes I kind of miss like just being able to be like, holy shit, like reality is so fucking crazy, man. Like, dang, dude, aliens and shit, you know? I miss it. I miss approaching reality as though it's like this puzzle that I'm figuring out, or this game that I'm a part of, and I'm putting all the pieces together and getting to use my brilliant mind to look into clues and things like that. That's all a very different energy than having to do this sort of like, damn, like really deep personal work, you know? Because that thing of like, damn, reality is this crazy puzzle, or I'm part of this wild game, was about me, but wasn't. Like, it was also somewhat impersonal, and sometimes I could create a narrative that I was this epic character within it, or on an epic quest or hero's journey within it, but ultimately it didn't ask for anything of me. It didn't ask for me to be responsible or accountable in any way. And I could be into all of those ideas about what reality really was, or how everything's connected into sacred geometry, number patterns, or whatever, and still be pulling all the same bullshit, you know? I could still be into whatever ideas about Buddhism intellectually and not have to actually see the ways I was creating attachment and suffering. And it's because, part of it was because I like literally couldn't even see it. I mean, I think I had to work on some level of myself to be able to engage in that kind of game, but this deeper ocean of content and habits and behaviors took like layer by layer, like an onion, really facing and working through one thing for the next thing to be ready to be shown to me. And so it might have been more fun before, but the thing that really gave me sort of like a nod of validation from what Jessa Reed was saying is that the next dimension of consciousness, the next layer of consciousness, is not necessarily about being able to put together an intellectual puzzle. It's about really clearing those negative patterns and all the places where we stop love. It's about truly honestly being onto ourselves, suspecting ourselves, knowing ourselves, and all of the sideways shitty shit we're involved in, and addressing our trauma, getting in touch with our inner child, learning how to have a witness inside that is connected to a larger sense of love, so that we can be more like of a clear channel to be able to connect with love and honesty with each other. And that everything we're doing now is about opening up that channel, cleansing it, purifying it, so that we can be in that free flow of love and honesty. And that it might not be as fun, but that if we really are getting leveled up, if we really are getting on that next plane of what truly is being asked for us now, then it's necessary work. And I have to feel that from the few glimpses that I've had, having a heartgasm at that level is even more profound than having like an intellectual gasm at the multidimensional puzzle level. And it makes me have so much more compassion for myself, because when I get in those moments of grief and like, damn, like I'm not as fun as I used to be, or like I'm not as like rad as I used to be. Like, you know, you go to a party and you say you're a interdimensional cyborg anthropologist, like you get a lot of props. You know, you go to a party and you're like, oh, like I'm a therapist specializing in codependency. Like people are like, yeah, you know, like damn, it's hard. It's hard losing that kind of like social cachet. But the reason why that social cachet works is because people like picking up things that don't require that sort of self-responsibility and accountability. But there's like a maturation to taking on that responsibility. There's like a seriousness to what it means to truly be able to sit in that awareness and see what you're up to without judgment or shame or trying to like put it into some heroic context, but just understanding that this is the next step of what has to be done. And if anything right now, I think everything that we're seeing on the world stage is showing us the need for a growth and development of the skills and learning what it truly means to be able to see with awareness, what it truly means to actually hold ourselves accountable. And the final thing that got me really wanting to do this is I noticed when I was judging myself for being less rad now, I was like, who would think I was less rad? Who would think that taking emotional responsibility and actually learning the skills and inner awareness tools necessary to have balanced conversations with people and being able to honestly and lovingly but firmly navigate emotional patterns and behaviors, who would think that's less rad? And of course the answer was like some fucking dude who lives in my head, right? Like some dude who doesn't want to have to take responsibility, some person who's probably avoiding having to truly go into their heart and their emotional body and the patterns that they're doing and see the reality of what lives there. And so that made me even more motivated to really commit to this path, because it's almost like I have some sort of like young misogynistic dude who lives inside me who doesn't think that actually like taking emotional responsibility is cool. So fuck that guy. Or like, I love you and I understand you, or whatever. But on a deeper level, it might not seem as cool from the perspective of 4D, but I think if you really want to be able to hop onto the trajectory of what's moving towards the next evolution of consciousness, then this is fucking cool, and it is fucking necessary. And I don't know what we have to do to make it cool, other than like dismantle patriarchy. But maybe in doing this and actually like committing and valuing these things that have been so undervalued, you know, things that have been called soft skills, about communication, about emotional accountability, about like really recognizing where we fall into fear and you don't love me thinking is part of the work of consciousness of dismantling that patriarchy, and is also leading somewhere really fucking cool. So if you yourself have been noticing really intense hearing and seeing of your own patterns of codependency, of attachment, of dishonesty with yourself, then fuck yes. The journey is hard and deep and requires a lot of rigor, but it is coming into this maturity. It is coming into this ability to be open and truly in this undifferentiated field of love. It's coming into this ability to be honest about yourself and others, with yourself, and find what is going to be truly nourishing and truly supportive in the long run. I think this is what is being asked from us at the level of consciousness. And I think as hard as it is, now is the time to answer the call, to believe in it, to value it, and to know that you're a part of something truly magnificent.